Today, we're looking at a shift that isn't just shaping this moment, it's shaping the next few years of our lives. Saturn doesn't ask if it's fair, and Aries doesn't ask if you're ready. Together, they ask one thing: are you willing to do what it takes to grow? If your answer is, I don't know yet, never you mind. Because with Saturn here, we're all running laps around the backstops. So I grew up in South Texas, and we had what were called backstops in elementary school. And I remember being this little kid looking out at the field thinking, that is so far away. Every time we had to run them, I just wanted to die inside. And honestly, I can't imagine my reaction being much different today. And Saturn's going to be over here like, run it again, run it again. Hello, Cosmic Fam, and welcome back to Moonlight News, where we pick up what the planets are putting down. I'm Laurel, and in this episode, we're diving into Saturn and Aries and what it's demanding of us now and for the long haul. But before we jump in, I want to share something with you. I've been working behind the scenes to improve how I create and share this content. And whenever you start something new, there is always a bit of a learning curve. For me, my biggest curve has been trying to get used to myself on camera. It just throws me off when I see myself. It really throws me. I've been posting on TikTok for about a year now, and I've realized that it's time to upgrade. TikTok really isn't the best platform for the kind of material I really love to talk about. Things like in-depth astrology, ancient history, mythology. I'm making some changes, but I'm still in the experimental phases. So thoughtful and respectful feedback is always welcome. And hopefully we can all learn and grow together. For as long as I can remember, I've always felt like there was more going on than what we could see. I was that girl who always had their head in the clouds, literally staring at the sky like it was trying to tell me something. I couldn't explain it. I just felt it calling me to pay attention. So if you've ever felt like what you feel on the inside doesn't quite match what you're seeing on the outside, you're not alone. There is more, and we are being invited into it in our own unique ways. And if this is your first time watching, welcome. I'm delighted that you're here. Now let's get into it. Saturn is entering Aries on February 13th, marking the beginning of a new 2.5-year cycle of action, identity, and responsibility. Aries is fast, instinctive, bold. Saturn is slow, deliberate, and demanding. So when Saturn enters Aries, we are asked to mature how we act. Saturn's influence on Aries energy slows it down, and Aries really doesn't like that too much. So this energy could feel uncomfortable, especially for those with strong Aries placements, because Saturn is asking for patience in a part of your chart that naturally wants to get things going. This energy teaches us how to confront our fears, how to take responsibility, and how to build stamina for the long game. Saturn isn't here for the quick wins. It's here to strength train us, y'all. This would be a good time to point out that Saturn also isn't here just to make things more difficult. Saturn is a planet of mastery and always rewards us when we've put in the work. This isn't just about having the drive or the motivation to do what it takes. It's about following through and finishing what you start. So, fun fact, I am a Taurus sun sign, and a common characteristic of Taurus is patience, or so they say. But speaking for myself, when I want something, waiting for it feels like actual torture. Maybe that's my Cancer moon. I don't know. Anyway, I tend to go after what I want. And I've learned the hard way that rushing things or forcing outcomes usually ends up costing me more in the long run. What it really comes down to is discipline. And now Saturn shows up like, cool story, but let's put that to the test and see if you've actually learned something. So yeah, Saturn is calling all of us out on our bullshit right now. This transit can look like learning restraint, being accountable for your actions, facing fears around leadership, and building endurance instead of chasing quick victories with no long term growth. You will be tested, but remember, it's really just strength training, y'all. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. Neptune entered the sign of Aries on January 26th. This energy dissolves outdated stories about who we are and what we fight for and begins a new story. Neptune brings vision, and Aries brings the action. Neptune can also make it harder to see things clearly, and Aries is just ready to go. So you may be feeling inspired to act on your beliefs before fully understanding why, because the clarity just hasn't had a chance to catch up yet. I did post a two-part series on this transit called Neptune and Aries, The Steam Beneath the Waves. So if you want to go deeper, you can check that out after this. At its highest expression, Neptune and Aries is the energy of spiritual warriors, of beliefs in motion. Together, Neptune and Saturn and Aries are rewriting the rules of our actions and beliefs, awakening a new spiritual frequency, not somewhere far away, but in each one of us. Some questions to ask yourself. Can you act with integrity, even when things feel uncertain? What does courage look like when it's guided by discipline instead of impulse? And can you follow your vision and still stay grounded in reality? And what would it look like if your actions were guided by spirit rather than ego? This is energy of faith with accountability and leadership with a conscience. What survives this transit endures. What was fantasy without foundation dissolves. And what was structure without substance begins to crack open. And this process is being softened by what is unfolding in Pisces right now. If clarity hasn't been arriving through your thoughts lately, it may be because it's moving through your feelings instead. Has your logic loosened or your intuition gotten stronger? You may even be finding it harder to explain things lately, but easier to feel what's true. Mercury and Venus have both entered the sign of Pisces, where words become poetry, and truth is no longer something you analyze. Instead, it can arrive as a feeling you can't explain, or a dream you can't shake, or a knowing you can't ignore. Mercury entered Pisces on February 6th, softening the way we think and communicate. Then on February 10th, Venus joined Mercury in Pisces, and Venus loves to be here. Venus can be herself in Pisces. She can love without limits, and compassion deepens. Beauty is no longer something to be observed with Venus in Pisces, but something you experience in a more meaningful way. Mercury in Pisces dissolves rigid mental stories, making space for a more intuitive and compassionate understanding of our path. You may begin to question the impulse to move forward, asking whether it comes from fear, fantasy, faith, or truth. Venus is softening Saturn's severity and nurturing Neptune's visions, bringing grace and comfort to the process. Mercury and Venus and Pisces are like the music playing in the background while you're doing all that Saturn and Aries strength training stuff. This energy doesn't change what you're building. It changes how it feels while you're building it. It influences the mood, the pace, and the heart you bring into this process, reminding you to stay connected to your feelings and your intuition as you move forward. This energy is asking, can you act with courage without losing your empathy? Can you build something real without abandoning your dreams? And can you lead without hardening your heart? You may be asking, so how does all of this actually show up in your life? That depends on where Aries and Pisces live in your chart. Here is a breakdown of Mercury and Venus in Pisces by house placement to give you an idea of how this energy will be affecting you. This would be a good time to pull up your astrology chart if you have it. and find the house where Aries resides. That is where this story is unfolding for you. Starting with Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the first house, you are being asked to define who you are with courage and maturity. This transit develops self discipline and self confidence, so you can show up as a stronger, more authentic leader. Neptune's influence dissolves old identities and awakens a new, intuitive, spiritually driven sense of purpose. Saturn then asks you to own this identity with discipline. No hiding, no fantasy, just embodied truth. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the second house. Saturn brings structure and responsibility to how you make money, our resources, and our self worth. You're learning to build sustainable security rather than acting from impulsivity. These two planets are really checking you on your impulsive buys. You're developing stronger financial foundations as a result of it and greater inner value. Neptune's influence questions what you truly value and exposes illusions around money and self worth. This is begging the question: do you really need to buy that to feel good about yourself? Saturn follows by demanding practical boundaries and self worth that is earned and maintained through hard work. In other words, this influence is asking: do you work to support your lifestyle, or does your lifestyle support your work? Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the third house. Your voice carries more weight now, and that weight comes with responsibility. Words matter, and they have tremendous power to build up or to tear down. You're becoming more intentional in how you communicate, think, and learn. Challenges may arise around your mindset or your sibling relationships as you outgrow old ways of thinking. Neptune's influence opens up more intuitive and meaningful communication routes, while Saturn sharpens clarity, accountability in how you're thinking and speaking. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the fourth house. This is the house of home and family and our emotional foundations, and they are under reconstruction right now. You're redefining safety and stability from the ground up, cultivating a deeper emotional maturity and a stronger inner peace. Neptune's influence is dissolving old family narratives. Saturn rebuilds inner security through boundaries, self soothing, and taking responsibility for yourself. And could we just have a hand of applause for those learning to take responsibility for themselves emotionally, because that is hard. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the fifth house. You're committing to creativity, joy, your children, and maybe even your very own inner child. This transit clarifies what and who you're willing to invest your heart in for the long term. Neptune's influence romanticizes love and creative expression, while Saturn asks which passions are real enough to sustain and which fantasies must be released. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the sixth house. Work, health, and daily routines become more disciplined and intentional. You're learning how to manage your energy wisely and create habits that strengthen your future success. Neptune's influence sensitizes the body and brings to the surface routines that are draining your energy for release. Saturn establishes grounded practices that honor both physical vitality and spiritual well being. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the seventh house. Relationships are getting serious, y'all. With this influence, commitments are being tested, redefined, and clarified. This transit brings structure and boundaries to your partnerships, or this transit can reveal where endings are necessary. Neptune's influence idealizes partners, while Saturn delivers the reality checks. Relationships built on authenticity and mutual respect will really thrive during this time. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the eighth house. Deep emotional and psychological work is unavoidable for you. You're learning responsibility around intimacy, power, vulnerability, and shared resources, developing trust without self betrayal. Neptune's influence opens profound emotional and spiritual depths, But Saturn asks you to navigate these waters with maturity, boundaries, and integrity. This can feel like a tug of war between protecting yourself by cutting someone off to avoid being vulnerable, or doing the deeper work it takes to show up and build more honest and authentic connections. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the ninth house. Belief systems and life direction are being restructured. You're being asked to live your truth through action, not just in theory. And you may feel compelled to teach or embody your hard earned wisdom. Neptune's influence dissolves your outdated belief structures and opens more of a spiritual inquiry into these themes, while Saturn challenges you to ground your faith through your lived experience. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the 10th house. Career, public life, and reputation come under pressure, teaching you responsibility, authority, and leadership. This is a long term legacy building transit, so what you build now can last. Neptune's influence shifts ambition towards your purpose and calling. Saturn then anchors that calling into tangible leadership and lasting contribution. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the 11th house. Your role in the collective is maturing. Your friendships and communities are shifting towards more purpose driven goals and shared visions. Collaborations become more intentional and productive for you during this time. Neptune's influence inspires collective dreams and idealism, while Saturn defines your role and clarifies which visions are realistic and worth building. Saturn and Neptune in Aries in the 12th house. This is a karmic closing chapter for you. You're learning discipline around rest, boundaries, and unconscious patterns, preparing for an inner rebirth. Neptune's influence awakens deep spiritual surrender and your subconscious. Saturn supports closure, healing, and the release of old karmic cycles that have hindered your growth. We are living in a moment of passage, y'all. The old stories are fading and new truths are being written. Neptune is lighting new creative sparks, and Saturn is trying to catch those sparks and build a hearth, allowing a new future to take form. Aries energy will try to rush everything forward, but your work right now is not to force the future. It's to cultivate it carefully and intentionally. Astrology doesn't just describe what's happening in the sky above us. It mirrors the living, breathing organism we call life, how it sheds, how it grows, how it initiates us into the unknown. But within that vast mystery of the unseen, we begin to realize that our lives are not separate threads, but strands braided into the very fabric of existence. And you are not lost in the vastness. You are part of the design. And while this process isn't always easy, it is sacred because we are witnessing unfold in real time what is written across the cosmos, and it's coming alive within our very being. I've included a list of events from the last time Saturn and Neptune moved through Aries so you can see how these cycles have shaped history before, and hopefully gain some insight into how this energy may be shaping for us now. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Moonlight News. I truly hope you enjoyed it. And if all this has you wondering, what does this mean for me personally? I am currently open for booking astrology readings. Right now, I have availability the last week of February and into March. I also offer hybrid readings where I incorporate your personal chart into a tarot reading. Tarot cards carry astrological significance, and I bridge those two systems together in my hybrid sessions. I also offer personalized monthly transit reports designed to walk you through the energy day by day, based on your chart. So if you feel called, I would truly love to work with you. That's all for now. I'll be back next week with an episode on the solar eclipse in Aquarius. Until then, stay intuitive, stay grounded, lead with your heart, and remember, the universe has your back.